For almost 10 years, Lee Min-ho stayed away from major films, leaving fans wondering why a star at the height of global fame would choose silence. After his last major movie, Gangnam Blues, he stepped away from cinema in a move that felt both shocking and mysterious. But what looked like a disappearance was actually the beginning of a quieter, deeper story. A story of growth, loss, rediscovery, and a return that feels almost destined. After Gangnam Blues, when people expected him to dominate the big screen, he took a detour that surprised everyone but made perfect sense to him. This detour wasn't about running away from film. It was about finding himself again. He dedicated more time to Promise, his philanthropic platform. Instead of chasing scripts and spotlights, he focused on clean water projects, children's welfare, environmental causes, and turning fan support into real change. These years didn't put him in front of the camera. They put him in front of humanity. At the same time, he created his own artistic playground, Lee Min-ho Film, a YouTube channel where he directed, produced, and shaped content the way he wanted. No huge sets. No pressure to fit a mold. Just creativity, intimacy, and expression. This was Lee Min-ho as an artist, not an idol. As a creator, not a commercial product. The freedom he felt during this period began shaping him in ways a blockbuster never could. But something else happened during these quiet years. Something personal. Something that shook him deeply. He lost Choco, his beloved dog of 16 years. The companion who had been with him through fame, awards, stress, loneliness, and growing pains. When he wrote his farewell message, fans could feel the heartbreak behind the words. Losing Choco was more than emotional pain. It was a moment that forced him to reflect on time, purpose, and the kind of legacy he wanted to build. That loss opened a space inside him. A space that wasn't meant to be filled with noise or routine roles. It needed something meaningful, something powerful, something that matched the man he had become. And that was exactly when the script for Omniscient Reader came into his life. The story felt like the universe was speaking directly to him. A world on the brink of destruction. A character standing between survival and collapse. A narrative filled with darkness, courage, destiny, and rebirth. It wasn't another charming prince or romantic hero. It was a man forced to confront the end of everything. A man pushed to survive, to fight, to protect, and to become more than he ever imagined. When Lee Min-ho read the script, he didn't just analyze it. He connected with it. This story required emotional depth, maturity, and vulnerability, qualities he had gained during his near decade away from film. It wasn't a role the younger Lee Min-ho could have played with the same authenticity. It demanded someone who had lived, someone who had healed, someone who had lost and rebuilt himself from the inside out. In interviews before the movie's release, he admitted something rare. He said, "I could fall at any moment. One misstep, and it's over." Fans were shocked at his honesty. But the truth behind those words wasn't fear. It was wisdom. A decade in the shadows taught him that fame is not a guarantee. That strength comes from embracing risk, not hiding from it. And that returning to film required courage, not comfort. When he finally walked onto the set of Omniscient Reader, people around him noticed the transformation. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He wasn't trying to be the Lee Min-ho the world expected. He was simply present. Raw. Focused. Determined. In some scenes, he stands alone while destruction erupts around him. Skyscrapers collapse. Monsters tear through the sky. Roads split open beneath his feet. Yet his performance remains grounded, steady, deeply human. You can see the decade in his eyes. The discipline, the grief, the healing, the rediscovery, the maturity. His return wasn't driven by pressure or expectation. It wasn't because the film industry demanded him back. And it wasn't because he feared being forgotten. He returned because he found a story that deserved the man he had become. A story that aligned with his journey of growth. During his film break, he didn't lose fans. If anything, he built something bigger. Through his Minhoverse fan events and his global engagements, his audience grew more loyal, more connected, more emotionally invested. So when the announcement came that he would star in Omniscient Reader, the reaction was explosive. It wasn't just excitement. It was pride. Fans knew this wasn't a comeback. It was an evolution. And that leads to the most powerful truth of all. Lee Min-ho didn't return for cinema. He returned for purpose. He returned for a story that mirrored his own transformation. He returned for a role that captured the man he is today, not the idol he once was. There is a scene in Omniscient Reader that feels like a metaphor for his life. Standing on a collapsing bridge, flames painting the sky, wind tearing at his clothes, and chaos shaking the world beneath him. He hesitates for a moment. Then he steps forward. One step, then another. Not because the path is safe, but because the journey demands courage. That moment is Lee Min-ho's decade. That moment is his silence. That moment is his rebirth. He walked away from the big screen at the height of fame. He returned stronger, deeper, wiser. He didn't return to reclaim a crown. He returned to begin a new chapter. A chapter written not by pressure, but by purpose. Not by expectation, but by evolution. Not by fear, but by fire. A comeback is when a star returns to where they once were. This is not that story. This is the story of a man who returned to the end of the world to begin a new one.